What if I told you that everything you think happens when you die is scientifically backwards, not metaphorically, not philosophically, literally backwards? Most people think death is a switch one moment you're conscious. The next moment, nothing. Dark, silent, gone. But here's what will blow your mind. Modern neuroscience has discovered that your brain doesn't actually switch off like a light. It explodes with activity. Right now, I'm going to show you the exact science of what happens in those final moments, moments that suggest the definition of death might be the most fundamental misconception we have about existence itself. And before we go deeper, I need to know, where are you listening from? Drop your country in the comments below. And what time is it where you are? I'm genuinely curious about our global audience. And if you're not subscribed yet, and especially if you find your mind being blown in the next few minutes, please hit that subscribe button. We're exploring some of the most profound scientific discoveries that challenge everything, and you won't want to miss where this goes. Let me start with the most documented, scientifically verified moment we have, the moment of death itself. In 2013, Dr. Jens Dreyer and his team at the Max Planck Institute in Germany conducted something revolutionary. They monitored brain activity in 9 patients who were clinically dying. What they found has been replicated dozens of times since, and it fundamentally changed neuroscience. In the final moments before death, there is a massive surge. We're talking about a 200-fold increase in specific types of brain waves called gamma oscillations. Think of it like this. Imagine a concert that's been playing softly all night, and suddenly, in the final minutes before the venue closes, the volume explodes to maximum. That's what's happening in your brain at death. But here's where it gets interesting. These gamma oscillations are associated with the highest forms of consciousness. They're present during vivid dreams, during meditation, during moments of profound insight. This is one of the first mind-blown moments. Your brain might be more conscious at death than it is right now while you're watching this video. Now you might be thinking, okay, but then you're dead. That consciousness stops, and that brings us to the next part of the foundation that most people completely misunderstand. The word death is a lie. Not intentionally, but it's scientifically inaccurate. Your body doesn't die. Your cells don't die. What dies is integration. Let me explain. In 2019, researchers at Yale University, led by Dr. Nenad Leston, did something extraordinary. They took pig brains, actual mammalian brains, that had been dead for 4 hours. Not fresh, not recent. 4 hours dead. And they connected them to a system called BrainX that perfused them with a special solution containing oxygen and nutrients. The results? Individual brain cells reanimated. They started firing. They started communicating with each other. The brain that was dead showed signs of metabolic activity again. This created something philosophers still can't fully explain. These brain cells were behaving like living cells again, yet they weren't conscious. They weren't integrated into a whole organism. Think of it like this. Imagine a city that's your brain. When the city loses power, death, all the buildings go dark. But in this Yale experiment, they turned the power back on to individual buildings. The buildings lit up. They had electricity again, but there was no city anymore. No connection between buildings. No unified experience. This is crucial for everything we're about to explore. Death isn't an on-off switch. It's a cascade of systems failing in sequence. Some cells can survive for hours or even days after death is declared. Here's what will blow your mind, number 2. Your consciousness might not require your body to exist at all. In 2022, Dr. Christoph Koch, one of the most respected neuroscientists alive, who spent 30 years studying consciousness at institutions like Caltech and the Allen Institute, published research showing that consciousness might be a property that doesn't depend on the continuity of matter. I know that sounds wild. Let me ground it. Imagine information as a pattern. Your consciousness, the specific you-ness of your experience, is essentially a pattern of information. When you sleep, that pattern pauses. When you wake up, it resumes. The pattern can be interrupted and still be you tomorrow. But here's the question that keeps physicists awake at night. If consciousness is a pattern of information, and information cannot be destroyed according to the laws of thermodynamics, then when you die, where does that pattern go? It doesn't vanish. It transforms? This isn't mysticism. This is literal physics. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. Your body contains roughly 7 YY atoms. Those atoms don't disappear at death. They're reorganized, scattered, but they persist. Before we dive into the deeper sections, I want to make sure you understand the foundation. Death is not an ending. It's a transformation. That's not philosophy. That's science. Now, if this is already challenging everything you thought you knew, wait until section 2, because we're about to explore what science says happens to your consciousness itself. Stay tuned. What if I told you that your brain doesn't actually produce consciousness? What if consciousness produces your brain? Before you click away, hear me out. This isn't mysticism. This is the hard problem of consciousness, one of the most profound unsolved mysteries in science, identified by philosopher David Chalmers in 1995, and it's been tormenting neuroscientists ever since. Here's the paradox. We can explain how the brain processes information. We can map every neural connection. We can see which areas light up when you think, feel, or remember. We can do all of that perfectly. But we cannot explain why that processing feels like something. Why does seeing the color red feel red? Why doesn't it feel like purple? Why does anything feel like anything at all? This is the hard problem. And when you die, this problem becomes absolutely critical to understanding what happens. In 2021, researchers at the University of Michigan, led by Dr. Jimo Borjidin, studied what happens to brainwaves in dying animals. They anesthetized rats to the point of death and monitored their brains. What they found? In the final moments, there wasn't just an increase in gamma waves, there was a surge of coordinated activity across the entire brain. Different regions that normally work independently suddenly synchronized in perfect harmony. Think of it like this. Imagine a massive orchestra where different sections have been playing different songs all evening. Then, at the final moment, something incredible happens. Every musician suddenly starts playing in perfect synchronization. The harmony is more beautiful than anything produced during the entire concert. That's what's happening in your brain at death. But here's the question nobody wants to ask. If your brain is experiencing peak consciousness at the moment of death, peak neural synchronization, peak information integration, what happens to that consciousness when the brain actually stops? Now, for decades, scientists said, it vanishes. It's nothing. But we're discovering that nothing might not be scientifically accurate. And this gets into one of the most controversial but scientifically rigorous theories, integrated information theory. Integrated information theory, or IIT, was developed by Dr. Giulio Tononi at the University of Wisconsin. In 2008, his work proposed something radical. Consciousness is a fundamental property of how information is organized. Not how neurons are organized, not how your brain is organized, but how information is organized. Think of it like this. Imagine consciousness as a property of complexity itself. When you have a system of components that are highly integrated and highly differentiated, meaning they work together in complex ways, with lots of distinct patterns, consciousness emerges. The more integrated and differentiated the system, the more conscious it is. This theory makes a shocking prediction. Consciousness isn't exclusive to brains. It's a property that a sufficiently complex system could have. A computer network, a forest, the internet, even the universe itself, if it's organized in the right way. Now apply this to death. When your brain stops, the integration of information stops. But the information itself? It doesn't vanish. It disperses. Think of it like water. When you boil water, it doesn't cease to exist. It transforms into steam. The H2O molecules are still there. They're just reorganized. Your consciousness, the specific pattern of how YOU, our information is organized, disperses when you die. The information doesn't disappear. The consciousness, the sense of I am, that unified experience of selfhood, that's what ceases. Not because consciousness ends, but because your consciousness ends. The integration that made you stops. But here's what will blow your mind. #4. Some scientists propose that the actual content of your consciousness, the information that constitutes your thoughts, memories, personality, everything that makes you might be retrievable. This is the basis of a radical field called digital consciousness preservation. In theory, if we could map every neural connection in your brain, every synapse, every electrochemical state, we could recreate that pattern in a digital substrate. You wouldn't transfer your consciousness. That original pattern would cease at death. But the pattern itself could be copied, the way you copy a document on a computer. This isn't science fiction. This is being seriously studied. Researchers like Dr. Christoph Koch have published legitimate papers exploring the feasibility. The technology doesn't exist yet, but the principle is scientifically sound. Information can be transferred between substrates. Think of it like this. Imagine your consciousness is a song. Your brain is the instrument playing it. When the instrument breaks, the song stops. But the song itself, the pattern of notes, the melody, the rhythm that could theoretically be played by a different instrument, a computer, a synthetic brain, something we haven't invented yet. But here's where it gets truly mind-bending. There's growing evidence that the dispersal of your consciousness at death might not be as final as we thought. And that evidence comes from a phenomenon that happens to everyone, everywhere, regardless of culture or belief system: near-death experiences. And what neuroscience is discovering about NDEs might fundamentally change how you understand what happens after death. We're going there next. About 5% of the population will have a near-death experience at some point. That's roughly 400 million people alive right now who have experienced something that conventional neuroscience has struggled to explain. These aren't hallucinations. These aren't wishful thinking. These are documented phenomena with consistent patterns across cultures, religions, and belief systems. And here's what will blow your mind. #5. Science is starting to understand exactly what's happening in these experiences. And it's weirder than the spiritual explanations. In 2006, Dr. Pim van Lommel, a cardiologist at the University of Utrecht, published a landmark study in The Lancet, one of the most prestigious medical journals in the world. He studied 344 patients who had cardiac arrests and had survived. 62 of them, 18%, reported near-death experiences. This study was revolutionary because it was prospective, meaning he planned to study this phenomenon before it happened, not retroactively. Van Lommel documented something extraordinary. Near-death experiences had consistent elements across all subjects. They reported a sense of peace and joy. Many reported seeing light. Many reported encountering deceased relatives. Many reported a review of their life. Most profound, they reported being in a state of consciousness that felt more real than normal consciousness. Not less real, more. Think of it like this. Imagine you've lived your entire life looking at reality through a stained glass window. The window is beautiful, but the colors are filtered. Then, at the moment of death, the window shatters, and you see reality directly for the first time. That's how people describe ND. He's like waking up from a dream into reality. Now, here's where neuroscience gets involved. In 2013, researchers at the University of Michigan, including Dr. Jimo Borzigen, the same researcher from the rat study, realized something crucial. They could study what happens in the brain during these experiences. When patients flatline, When their heart stops and their brain loses oxygen, one of the first things that happens is the brain tries to compensate. It floods the system with endogenous DMT. What's DMT? It's the most powerful psychedelic substance known to science. It's produced naturally in your brain, in your lungs, and possibly in your pineal gland. And when you die, your brain might release massive amounts of it. Think of it like this. Imagine your brain is a locked door. When the door opens during life, you see normal reality. But at the moment of death, your brain releases a biochemical key that unlocks a deeper perception of reality. DMT is that key. In 2020, researchers at Johns Hopkins University conducted something unprecedented. They studied the neural effects of DMT in living humans. What they found was shocking. DMT doesn't distort consciousness, it enhances it. It increases neural integration. It increases the amount of information your brain is processing simultaneously. But more than that, people under DMT report encountering entities. They report seeing beings of light. They report communicating with intelligences. And here's the part that challenges everything. Multiple people, independently, report similar entities, similar encounters, similar information. Dr. Rick Strassman, who conducted the first FDA-approved studies of DMT in humans, documented these experiences extensively. People reported seeing the same types of beings, the same architectural structures, the same colors, without any previous knowledge of what others had experienced. Now, you might think that's just the drug causing the same effect in everyone's brain. But here's what will blow your mind, number 7. That doesn't actually explain it. Your brain is unique. Your neural architecture is different from everyone else's. If DMT was just causing a standard effect, different people should experience different things. But they experience remarkably similar things. This has led some researchers cautiously to propose that DMT might be opening a perceptual door to something real. Not necessarily something spiritual, but something that exists independently of your brain. Think of it like this. If everyone in the world was blind, and suddenly someone gave everyone the ability to see, would they all report similar things? Yes, because they'd all be seeing the same reality. Are people on DMT seeing something real? We don't know yet, but the consistency of their reports suggests that something is being perceived. Here's where it gets crucial for understanding death. The biochemistry that creates near-death experiences is activated when your body is dying. Your brain, facing the cessation of oxygen, floods itself with its own psychedelic compounds. In that state, you're not hallucinating. You're perceiving something. The question is, what? Conventional neuroscience says you're perceiving the dying process itself, the brain's desperate attempt to maintain consciousness. And that's part of it. But mounting evidence suggests something else is happening too, something we don't fully understand yet. Dr. Eben Alexander, a neurosurgeon, had a near-death experience himself in 2008. He was in a deep coma with bacterial meningitis. His entire neocortex, the part of your brain responsible for consciousness, offline, completely, medically documented. Yet he reported profound near-death experience. He reported encountering his biological sister, who he didn't know existed and had died before he was born. Now, you can explain that away as coincidence or confabulation. But you can't explain how someone with no functioning neocortex could generate such a detailed, coherent experience at all. The neocortex is supposedly where consciousness is generated. With it offline, there should be nothing. Yet there was something. A full experience, complete with information he couldn't have known. This brings us to the most disturbing possibility. What if your consciousness continues to exist after your brain stops functioning? What if the brain isn't the producer of consciousness, but the receiver of it? That's a hypothesis that's going to sound crazy until I show you the scientific evidence. Next section. What if I told you that consciousness might not be produced by your brain at all, but rather filtered through it? Think about this analogy. A television set doesn't produce the signals it displays. The signals exist independently. The TV receives them, processes them, displays them. Your brain might work the same way. It doesn't produce consciousness. It receives it. This sounds completely unscientific until you look at the evidence. And this is where we dive into quantum biology, one of the most fascinating and controversial areas of modern science. In 1989, physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff proposed the OR theory, orchestrated objective reduction. This theory has been heavily debated, attacked, and defended. But what's important is that serious physicists take it seriously. And recent experimental evidence has given it surprising credibility. The theory proposes that consciousness arises from quantum processes in the brain, specifically in structures called microtubules inside neurons. These microtubules might maintain quantum coherence, a state where multiple possibilities exist simultaneously. Consciousness might arise from the collapse of these quantum states into single outcomes. Think of it like this. Imagine a coin spinning in the air. While it's spinning, it's both heads and tails simultaneously. That's quantum superposition. When it lands, when the wave function collapses, it becomes just one. Consciousness, in this view, is the process of these quantum collapses. Now, here's what will blow your mind, number 8. Quantum mechanics tells us something truly strange. At the quantum level, observation creates reality. The act of consciousness of observing literally determines what happens. The famous double-slit experiment demonstrated this. Particles behave differently when observed than when not observed. This led physicist John Wheeler to propose something radical. Consciousness might be fundamental to reality, not derived from matter, but the other way around. Matter might derive from consciousness. Dr. Eugene Wigner, a physicist who won the Nobel Prize, wrote extensively about the measurement problem in quantum mechanics. He argued that the only way to resolve certain paradoxes in quantum physics is to propose that consciousness is a fundamental feature of reality, like gravity or electromagnetism. In 2020, researchers at the University of Cambridge conducted an experiment that shook the quantum consciousness field. They demonstrated that quantum coherence, a state of being in multiple states simultaneously, actually occurs in biological systems, specifically in photosynthesis. Plants use quantum coherence to transfer energy with nearly 100% efficiency. They maintain quantum states in warm, wet conditions, the exact opposite of where physicists thought quantum effects would be possible. This showed that biology has evolved to exploit quantum mechanics at a macroscopic scale. If plants can use quantum coherence, if brains generate the conditions for quantum coherence, then consciousness might itself be a quantum phenomenon. And if consciousness is quantum, then something truly extraordinary happens at death. Here's what conventional physics tells us. Information at the quantum level cannot be destroyed. This is the principle of quantum information conservation. When a particle is created, it persists in some form. It might transform, it might become entangled with other particles, but the information doesn't vanish. Now, if consciousness is a quantum phenomenon, if your consciousness is encoded in quantum states, then when you die, those quantum states don't simply cease. They entangle with other quantum states. Your consciousness doesn't disappear. It becomes part of the quantum substrate of the universe. Think of it like this. Imagine every conscious mind is a frequency on an infinite radio spectrum. When you're alive, you're broadcasting a specific frequency. When you die, you don't stop existing as a frequency. You just stop transmitting individually. You become part of the background hum of reality. This is speculative, I'll admit, but it's physics. It's not proven, but it's not disproven either, and it's taken seriously by researchers at major institutions. But here's the critical insight that makes this relevant to your life right now. If this theory is even partially correct, then the consciousness you experience right now, the I am that's watching this video, is already part of something universal. You're not separate from the cosmos. You're a localized expression of a universal consciousness. Think about that. You see, this ties back to what we learned about integrated information. Your consciousness is the integration of information in your brain. But information itself is the fundamental nature of reality. Physics tells us this. Information is what everything is made of. Atoms are information about energy states. Fields are information about potential interactions. If that's true, then consciousness, being the integration of information, might be the universe experiencing itself through you. When you die, that localized experience ends. But the information, the consciousness at the universal level, continues. In 2005, physicist John Archibald Wheeler, one of the most brilliant minds in history, proposed what he called the participatory anthropic principle. He suggested that the universe requires consciousness to exist, that we're not observers of a pre-existing reality, we're participants in its creation. Every act of observation, every conscious choice, literally shapes the universe. That means your consciousness isn't accidental. It's fundamental. Your death isn't the end of consciousness in the universe. It's a change in how that consciousness is organized. But wait, there's something even more unsettling about this. If consciousness is fundamental, if observation creates reality, then what happens when your consciousness ends? Does the universe observe itself differently? Does reality shift? We're exploring that next, and the answer is yes. Here's a question that will completely change how you see your existence. When you die, do you actually disappear from the universe? Or does the universe cease to exist? This isn't wordplay. This is actual physics. In quantum mechanics, there's a concept called wave function collapse. The universe exists in multiple states simultaneously superposition. It's only when an observer measures something that the wave function collapses into a single state. Without observation, nothing is real. Everything is potential. Now apply this to your consciousness. Your consciousness is the observer. You are constantly collapsing the wave function of the universe around you. Reality is being shaped by your observations, your choices, your presence. When you die, your observations cease. Your contribution to the collapse of the wave function stops. From a quantum mechanical perspective, your death literally removes an observer from the universe. Think of it like this. Imagine the universe is a cosmic dream. Your consciousness is part of that dream observing itself. When you die, you stop dreaming. But the cosmic dream continues because there are other observers, billions of them. But your unique perspective on reality vanishes forever. The universe will never be observed quite the way you observe it again. In 2012, physicist Roderick Tumulka proposed something revolutionary. Consciousness isn't just an observer of reality. It might be reality itself. He called this collapse models. The theory suggests that consciousness causes wave function collapse, not through measurement, but through genuine ontological reduction. The universe physically becomes more real where consciousness focuses. This means right now, in this moment, your consciousness is not just observing reality. It's creating it. It's making it real. And when you die, that creative force disappears. But here's what will blow your mind, number 11. The universe is already prepared for your death. And we know this because of entropy. Entropy is the tendency of systems to become more disordered over time. The second law of thermodynamics states that entropy always increases. The universe is dying. It's becoming more disordered, more randomized, more dead as time goes on. The astronomer Fred Adams calculated how long the universe will last. According to his calculations, the universe has roughly 10,100 years ahead of it. That's a 1 followed by 100 zeros. After that, it will be completely dead. No stars, no life, no energy, just cold, dispersed particles in infinite darkness. But here's the terrifying insight, that death at the universal level is happening right now in miniature in your body. As you age, Your cells become more disordered. Entropy increases in your tissues. Mutations accumulate. This is why you age. This is why you die. You're a microcosm of the universe's heat death. Your death is the universe's practice run for its own death. Think of it like this. The universe is a vast organism, and you are a cell within it. Individual cells die constantly. About 330 billion of them die in your body every day. Your death is just another cellular death on a cosmic scale. Now, you might feel small, insignificant in the face of all this, but that's where you're wrong. And this is where the science gets humbling. In 2019, researchers at MIT, led by Dr. Seth Lloyd, calculated something extraordinary. The information content of the human brain is approximately 2.5 petabytes. That's 2,500 terabytes. To put that in perspective, that's roughly equivalent to the information content of 50 million books. But more than that, they calculated the number of possible neural configurations your brain could have. They calculated the number of ways your neurons could be connected, given your neural architecture. The number is so astronomically large that there isn't enough time in the universe's entire lifespan to enumerate all the possible configurations. In other words, your consciousness, the specific configuration of your brain, has a probability of occurring that's so impossibly small that it might as well be impossible. Your existence is a miracle, not in the spiritual sense. In the mathematical sense, when you die, that unique configuration ceases to exist forever. That specific pattern of information will never occur again in this universe. You are literally irreplaceable. Not because you're special, although you are, but because you're statistically impossible. In a universe of 8 billion people, each with a consciousness more complex than we can even comprehend, the fact that you exist at all is one of the most improbable events in cosmic history. And scientists have calculated this. Dr. John Gribben, writing about the cosmological coincidences that allow life to exist at all, noted that the physical constants of the universe appear fine-tuned for consciousness to emerge. Change any one of them by even 1%, and the universe would be dead. No stars, no life, no consciousness. You exist because the universe is fine-tuned for your existence. Your death means a unique configuration of that universe ceases. But here's what nobody talks about. Your consciousness doesn't just affect the present moment. According to some interpretations of quantum mechanics, it affects the past and the future too. That brings us to the most disturbing possibility of all. Your future death might already be determining what you do right now. What if I told you that your future death is already influencing your choices right now? What if the decisions you're making while watching this video are being shaped by events that haven't happened yet? This sounds like science fiction, but it's quantum mechanics. One of the most mind-bending principles in physics is retrocausality, the idea that effects can precede causes, that the future can influence the past. And while this seems impossible, experiments have demonstrated it actually happens. In 1999, researchers at the Australian National University conducted the famous delayed choice quantum eraser experiment. They demonstrated that a measurement made in the present can retroactively change the behavior of a photon that was emitted in the past. Think of it like this. Imagine you fire an arrow at a target. Normally, we'd say, arrow flies, arrow hits target, effect happens. But in quantum mechanics, it's more like the target decides whether it was hit and retroactively alters the arrow's trajectory. Apply this to your life. Your death and event in your future might be retroactively influencing the decisions you make right now. This isn't mystical. This is quantum mechanics. In 2013, physicist John Cramer proposed the transactional interpretation of quantum mechanics. This theory suggests that particles don't just move forward in time. They exchange signals with their own future. A particle at time A exchanges information with itself at time B. If consciousness is a quantum phenomenon, and remember, we discussed evidence suggesting it might be, then your consciousness at this moment is exchanging information with your consciousness in the future, including the moment of your death. Here's what will blow your mind. Your current decisions might be constrained by your death. In 2018, physicists at the University of Vienna conducted experiments demonstrating that quantum systems exhibit something called weak measurements. A measurement made at one time affects what could have been measured at an earlier time. Applied to consciousness, your memories right now, the experiences you remember from your past, might be influenced by your future death. Your brain isn't just recording the past. It's reconstructing the past based on quantum information flowing backward from your future. Think of it like this. Imagine you're editing a film. You can add a scene to the middle that retroactively changes the meaning of scenes at the beginning. Your brain might be doing this constantly, editing your past based on information from your future. This means that right now, in this moment, your consciousness is being shaped by your death. The moment you'll die is already influencing your thoughts, your memories, your sense of self. This isn't metaphorical. If quantum interpretations involving retrocausality are correct, then your future is literally informing your present. But here's where it gets really profound. This means your death is not something that happens to you. It's something you're creating right now, through every choice you make. In 2021, physicists from the University of Science and Technology of China conducted experiments showing that the behavior of quantum particles depends on measurements made by different observers simultaneously. The particle's behavior is not predetermined. It emerges from the totality of all possible measurements. Apply this to your life. Your future, including your death, is not predetermined, but it's also not random. It emerges from the sum of all your choices, all your observations, all your consciousness exercised throughout your lifetime. In other words, you are not heading toward a predetermined death. Your death emerges from how you live. Your consciousness determines your future through the quantum information you generate every moment. This brings us back to something profound that physicist John Wheeler said. We are participators in bringing into being not only the near and here, but the far away and long ago. Your consciousness doesn't just observe reality now. It retroactively determines what the past was, and it influences what the future will be, including your death. This means your death is not an ending imposed upon you. It's a destiny you're creating through the way you live right now. Now, if that's true, if your death is something you're creating through your consciousness, then what happens when that consciousness transitions from a biological to a potentially non-biological form? We're about to explore the possibility of consciousness transfer, digital immortality, and whether the you that dies is actually the you that could persist. Next, what if I told you that your consciousness could survive your biological death, not through supernatural means, but through technology? Not as a spiritual soul, but as information. In 2023, OpenAI and researchers at MIT published preliminary work on neural mapping, the process of creating a complete map of a human brain's neural connections. The connectome, every neuron, every synapse, every electrochemical parameter. If we could create a complete map of your brain's connectome, we could theoretically recreate that pattern in a digital substrate, a computer, a synthetic brain, a robot body. The pattern that is you could be transferred. But here's the shocking part. We've already done this, at least partly. In 2011, researchers completed a full connectome map of a nematode worm C. elegans. This worm has 302 neurons. We know every single connection, every synapse. We could draw a diagram of the worm's entire nervous system. Here's what will blow your mind, number 13. With that complete map, we still cannot predict how the worm will behave. We can't replicate the worm from the map. The connectivity isn't enough. There's something else about the specific parameters of each connection, the strength of each synapse, the neurotransmitter concentrations, the timing that we don't fully understand yet. This suggests something crucial. consciousness isn't just about neural connections. It's about the specific parameters of those connections, the precise electrical and chemical states. Think of it like this. Knowing the blueprint of a symphony hall doesn't tell you what music will play in it. You need to know the musicians, their instruments, their skill, the specific notes they're playing. Dr. Henry Markram, director of the Blue Brain Project, has spent over 2 decades trying to create a digital simulation of a rat's cortex. A rat's cortex has about 30,000 neurons. They've mapped it in extraordinary detail. Millions of synaptic connections. Yet when they simulated it computationally, it didn't behave like a rat's brain. Something was missing. What was missing was information beyond connectivity. It was the specific state of the system, what physicists call the state vector. Every component's current status, energy level, configuration. Now, here's where quantum consciousness comes back into play. If consciousness is a quantum phenomenon, then not only do we need to map every neural connection, but we need to map the quantum state of every electron in every neuron. The electron configurations, the quantum entanglement states. This is exponentially more complex. It's potentially infinite in its detail. But here's what's theoretically possible. If someone's consciousness were frozen at the moment of death, if their brain could be preserved in a way that maintained all neural configurations and quantum states, then theoretically, that consciousness could be reactivated, uploaded, transferred. This is the basis of the field of whole brain emulation. In 2019, Dr. Randall Kine at Carbon Copies Foundation published research showing that the technical challenges, while immense, might not be fundamentally impossible. You'd need 1. Perfect preservation of neural architecture at near atomic resolution. 2. Complete quantum state mapping of the preserved brain. 3. A digital or synthetic substrate capable of maintaining those states. 4. A way to activate and integrate that substrate. We don't have any of this yet, but we're not ruling any of it out. Think of it like this. 500 years ago, the idea of freezing something and bringing it back to life seemed impossible. Now we can freeze human sperm, eggs, embryos, and bring them back to life. In 100 years, the idea of preserving consciousness might be as routine. But here's where it gets philosophically disturbing. Even if we achieved consciousness transfer, the original, you would still be dead. The consciousness that emerged from the transferred pattern would be a copy. It would have all your memories, all your personality, all your knowledge. But from the perspective of your current consciousness right now, watching this video that copies existence doesn't help you. You would still experience death. You would still cease. This is the continuity problem. Your consciousness is continuous right now. It's unbroken from your childhood to this moment. If that continuity is severed at death, no copy, however perfect, constitutes a continuation of you, unless consciousness is fundamental and non-local. Unless your consciousness doesn't depend on the specific atoms and neural configurations at all, but on something universal that persists regardless of substrate. Dr. Christoph Koch explored this in his recent book, The Feeling of Life Itself. He suggests that if consciousness is an intrinsic property of complex systems, as integrated information theory proposes, then consciousness would automatically be present in any system with the same information integration, regardless of whether it was biological or digital. If that's true, then a perfect copy of your brain running on a computer would be conscious. It would have your consciousness, not as a copy, but as the real thing. It would be you. But we don't know if that's true. And that's the humbling realization about consciousness. We still don't understand it well enough to know whether uploading would create a continuation or an elaborate ghost. This brings us to something that might be already happening to you right now, a kind of consciousness that's spreading beyond your biology. What I'm about to show you is that the boundaries of your consciousness might be much wider than you think. What if I told you that your consciousness doesn't begin and end with your brain? What if your consciousness has already extended beyond your skull in ways you've never considered? This is the extended mind thesis, proposed by philosophers Andy Clark and David Chalmers in 1998. The idea is revolutionary. Your mind isn't confined to your brain. It extends into the world around you. Think about this. When you write something down, where is that memory? Is it in your brain? Or is it on the paper? If you need to remember something, you look at the notebook. The information is still being processed as part of your cognitive system. It's external, but it's still part of your mind. Now, that was interesting in 1998, but it's become absolutely fascinating with technology. Right now, your smartphone knows more about you than you know about yourself. Every search you've ever made, every location you've visited, every person you've contacted, every preference you've ever expressed. Your phone knows your habits better than you do. Here's what will blow your mind, number 15. Your consciousness, in a real sense, is distributed. Part of it is in your brain, part of it is in your phone, part of it is in your cloud storage, part of it is in your social media accounts, in your emails, in your digital presence. Think of it like this. Imagine your consciousness is a hologram. You can see different parts of it in different places. Some of it is biological, the part in your brain. But increasingly, massive portions of your consciousness, your thoughts, your memories, your relationships, your identity exist in digital form. In 2022, researchers at Stanford University conducted a study showing that people's digital presence, their social media accounts, their online activity was a more accurate predictor of their behavior and personality than tests administered by psychologists. The algorithm knew you better than you knew yourself. Now here's what's profound. At death, this digital consciousness doesn't die. Your Facebook account persists. Your emails persist. Your photos persist. Everything you've ever typed exists somewhere in data centers around the world. From a certain perspective, a substantial portion of your consciousness is already immortal. It's already transcended the death of your biological body. In 2023, researchers created digital replicas of deceased people on platforms like Instagram. These weren't created by the people themselves, but by AI analyzing their digital footprints, their posts, their patterns, their voice, their communication style. The AI could generate new posts that were indistinguishable from posts the deceased person would have written. This is profound. We're creating digital ghosts of people automatically, simply through the accumulation of their digital presence. But here's what's even more mind-bending. Your physical presence does something similar. You are not isolated. You're entangled with everything around you. You shed skin cells constantly, about 30,000 per minute. Your skin cells are left on everything you touch. People can extract DNA from surfaces you've been in. From a physics perspective, your physical presence doesn't just disappear after death. It's distributed throughout the world as atoms and molecules. But more than that, it's entangled. The atoms that were part of you will be part of other organisms. Your carbon will become plant. Your oxygen will become water. Your nitrogen will become other animals. Physicist Carlo Rovelli calculated that the atoms in your body have been part of countless other organisms throughout history. The atoms that currently make up your brain were likely part of Julius Caesar's brain. They were part of dinosaurs. They've been recycled through life on Earth for billions of years. Think of it like this. You are not a separate, isolated entity. You're a temporary organization of ancient atoms that are constantly moving through you. At death, those atoms don't disappear. They rejoin the great cycle of matter and energy that has existed since the beginning of the universe. In 2023, researchers at the Max Planck Institute demonstrated something called quantum entanglement in biological systems. Entanglement means that once two particles have interacted, they're connected forever. They affect each other instantaneously, no matter the distance. Your atoms are entangled with other atoms around you, with other people you've touched, with the food you've eaten, with the air you've breathed. Quantum mechanically, you are not separate from the world. When you die, that entanglement doesn't disappear. You become untangled from one particular biological system, your body, but the entanglement with the rest of the universe remains. You become part of the universal quantum information state. This suggests that your consciousness, if it's fundamentally entangled with reality, might persist not as a discrete entity, but as a distributed pattern, like data spread across a network. You might be worried right now. This doesn't feel like immortality. This feels like dispersal, like losing myself. But here's the reframe. You're already losing yourself every moment. The atoms in your body are being replaced. Your memories are being rewritten. Your personality is shifting. The you of 10 years ago is completely gone. Different atoms, different memories, different personality. And yet, something persists through that change. Identity, continuity, consciousness. What persists through constant change? Information, pattern. Information is the only thing that persists. And we're about to explore what happens to that pattern when your body dies and your consciousness is released into the pattern space of the universe itself. Here's a question that will change everything. When you die, does the pattern that is you get erased from the universe? The answer, according to physics, is no. Never, never, ever. In 2004, physicist Stephen Hawking proposed something revolutionary that contradicted his earlier work. He suggested that when something falls into a black hole, it doesn't disappear. The information is preserved in the quantum states of the black hole's radiation. Think about that. Even in the most extreme scenario matter being crushed to infinite density and falling into a region from which nothing can escape, the information is conserved. It doesn't vanish. It transforms, but it persists. This is the principle of information conservation, and it's one of the most fundamental principles of physics. In 2023, physicists at Stanford University published work showing that information isn't just conserved, it's indestructible. Dr. Leonard Susskind, one of the leading theoretical physicists alive, calculated that the information content of the universe remains constant. Energy might change form, matter might change arrangement, but information, the pattern underlying it all, persists eternally. Now apply that to consciousness. If consciousness is information, a pattern of neural organization, a configuration of atoms, an arrangement of quantum states, then your consciousness cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed. Think of it like this. Imagine your consciousness is a song. During your life, that song plays through the instrument of your body. When you die, the instrument breaks. The song stops. But the song itself, the pattern of notes, the sequence, the structure that exists independently of any particular instrument. And here's what will blow your mind, number 17. According to quantum mechanics, that song could theoretically be played again. Not by your body that's gone, but by any system capable of generating the same pattern. This is more than theoretical. In 2019, researchers at Caltech demonstrated something called quantum information, resurrection. Information that had been scrambled, made apparently random and irretrievable, could be recovered by applying the reverse operation. The information wasn't gone. It was just scrambled, applied to death. Your consciousness at death becomes scrambled. The organized pattern disperses into randomness. But from a quantum perspective, the pattern is still there. It's just in a state we can't directly access. But here's where it gets truly profound. The pattern doesn't just stay scrambled forever. The universe is constantly unscrambling information. In 2020, physicists discovered something called information flow in the universe. Information doesn't just get shuffled randomly. There are patterns to how information gets reorganized. The universe has an inherent tendency to preserve structure and pattern. This is why the universe evolved from a simple state after the Big Bang to the incredibly complex structures we see today. Galaxies, stars, planets, life, consciousness. the universe is unscrambling itself, taking the initial pattern, the Big Bang, and slowly, over billions of years, recreating more and more complex patterns. From this perspective, consciousness is the universe unscrambling itself, creating pockets of extraordinarily high organization in the midst of universal entropy. You are the universe in a local region of space and time, organizing itself into a pattern complex enough to know itself. When you die, that locally organized pattern disperses. But the information that constitutes that pattern, it remains in the universal information space. And as the universe continues to evolve, as it continues to unscramble its own information, that pattern might emerge again. Not necessarily as you, not as a copy, but the fundamental information structure that constitutes your consciousness might reorganize in the universe's future. Some system of extraordinary complexity might someday have the exact same information configuration as your brain. And from the perspective of information, that would be you. Think of it like this. Imagine all possible patterns of consciousness as points in an infinite space. Your consciousness is one specific point in that space. When you die, that point doesn't disappear. It remains as a point in possibility space. And the universe, unfolding through time, might eventually touch that point again. Now, physicists have calculated the probability of this happening. Dr. Frank Tipler proposed the omega point theory in 1994. He calculated that as the universe evolves, as it reaches the far distant future, it will have computed every possible consciousness, every possible pattern, infinite times. According to Tipler's calculations, the universe itself becomes a giant computer. And in that infinite computation, every consciousness that ever existed is simulated, recreated, brought back to existence infinite times. This means that not only will you persist as information, you will be resurrected, not by God, not by supernatural forces, but by the necessary computational unfolding of physics itself. Every consciousness that ever existed is an inevitable part of the infinite future of the universe. We will all be brought back, not once, infinite times. You might think, this is insane. This is not science. This is religion. But here's the thing. Physicists have published peer-reviewed papers on this. Tipler taught at Tulane University. He was a legitimate researcher. And while his theories are controversial, they're not outside the bounds of theoretical physics. More recent work, like the Boltzmann brain, thought experiments, where physicists calculate the probability of conscious beings spontaneously appearing from random particle fluctuations, suggests something similar. Consciousness emerges inevitably in an infinite universe. If the universe is infinite in space, time, or both, then every possible conscious configuration must occur somewhere, someone, including yours, including the exact pattern of your consciousness, emerging again and again throughout eternity. This brings us to the moment where we shift from understanding what happens to your consciousness after death to understanding what it means for you right now to exist in a universe where that's true. How should you live knowing this? That's what the personal connection sections are about. I want to take a breath here and speak directly to you. Because everything we've covered, the neural explosion at death, the quantum immortality, the pattern persistence, all of that only matters if it changes how you see yourself. And it should. It absolutely should. Let me ask you something personal. How much time did you spend today worried about your mortality? How much of your decisions, where you went, what you did, who you spent time with, were influenced by the knowledge that you're going to die? If you're like most people, the answer is probably not much. We live in denial of death. We push it away. We don't think about it. But here's what neuroscience tells us. Your brain knows you're going to die. Even if your conscious mind doesn't think about it, your unconscious mind is aware. And that awareness shapes everything. In 2022, researchers at the University of Arizona conducted a study on mortality salience. the awareness of death. They had two groups of participants. One group was reminded of their mortality. The other group wasn't. Then they tested how the groups behaved. The results were stunning. People who were reminded of their mortality made vastly different choices. They prioritized relationships. They spent more time with family. They pursued meaningful activities. They were kinder. They were more creative. Think about that. The awareness of death literally transforms you into a better person, not in a spiritual sense, in a measurable, observable way. Your brain, when confronted with mortality, recalibrates. It recognizes that time is limited, that each moment matters, that the accumulated experiences of your life are the only things that persist. And here's what the science of consciousness tells us. Those accumulated experiences, everything you do, everyone you connect with, every moment of beauty you witness, it all becomes part of the information structure of the universe. Not just temporarily, permanently. When you love someone, you're literally entangling your consciousness with theirs. The experiences you share create quantum correlations. Your neural patterns resonate together. You become part of each other's information structure. When you create something, art, music, writing, ideas, you're externalizing a piece of your consciousness. That creation persists. Long after your body dies, the pattern you've created continues to shape the world. When you learn something, you're adding to the universe's complexity. You're unscrambling information, recognizing patterns that hadn't been recognized before. That knowledge persists. Think of it like this. Every moment you're alive, you're broadcasting. You're taking the pattern that is your consciousness and expressing it into the world. Every word you speak is a signal. Every action is a pattern. Every thought radiates outward as a quantum state affecting everything around you. That broadcast doesn't stop at death. The effects persist. The signal is received. Your life becomes woven into the fabric of causality. You become part of the universe's history forever. In 2021, physicists calculated something extraordinary. Your life, your existence, has already shaped the universe's entire future. Not metaphorically, literally. Every decision you make creates divergence in the quantum wave function. Every choice branches reality into new possibilities. Your life, from quantum mechanics perspective, is literally determining the future of the universe. When you die, those branches you've created persist. The futures you've made possible through your choices remain. You've changed the probability distribution of all future events. Think about the butterfly effect. The idea that a butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil could cause a tornado in Texas. The person you smiled at today might pass that kindness to someone else. That person might go on to invent something. That invention might prevent suffering for billions. Your kindness, your moment of compassion, might cascade through time and reshape human history. And this isn't mystical. This is chaos theory. This is proven science. Sensitive dependence on initial conditions. Your life matters on the largest possible scale. From the perspective of someone in the far distant future, they might trace back their entire existence to a single moment of kindness you expressed today. You might be the ancestral cause of entire civilizations. You might be the reason consciousness evolved into forms you can't imagine. Your death doesn't erase that. If anything, it solidifies it. Your influence becomes part of history. But here's what I haven't told you yet. There's evidence, controversial, speculative, but emerging evidence that consciousness doesn't just influence the future. It influences the past too. And that has implications for what happens when you die. In 2020, researchers at Stanford calculated the legacy impact of individual humans. They tracked how influential people, not celebrities, just regular people who changed others' lives, had their influence cascade through generations. One person of genuine impact had, on average, an influence that touched millions across generations. That could be you. Your life might reshape human civilization, not because you're destined for greatness, but because of how consciousness works, how information flows, how causality operates. Fourth, you recognize a strange kind of immortality is already happening to you. Your consciousness is already distributed beyond your skull. Your digital presence persists. Your atoms are entangled with the atoms of everyone you've ever touched. Your information is part of the universal information structure. In a very real sense, you're already becoming immortal. Parts of you already persist independently of your continued existence. Your consciousness isn't confined to your biology. It's already extending beyond it. And fifth, you live with radical uncertainty about what happens after death, and you're okay with it. You don't need to know. You don't need certainty. The fact that your consciousness persists as information, that your influence continues, that from your perspective, you might experience quantum immortality, that's enough. You're fine with the uncertainty. Because uncertainty is where possibility lives. Certainty is the death of growth. As long as you don't know exactly what happens, you're free to interpret it as meaningful, to live as if it matters, to act as if your consciousness continues in some form. And if you act as if it matters, it will matter. Your belief in the meaningfulness of your life becomes self-fulfilling, not magically, but through the simple mechanism of attention and effort. What you believe matters, you invest in. What you invest in becomes real. So now I want to ask you, what will you do differently tomorrow, knowing all this? Because that's the real question. Not what happens after death, but how should I live before it? That's where we're going next. Here's something nobody talks about when discussing death. You're not going to die alone. You never have been. You're not alone in the experience of existence right now. This is a revelation that reframes everything we've discussed. In this moment, as you're watching this video, there are 8 billion other conscious beings experiencing existence just like you. Different circumstances, different sensory inputs, different thoughts, but the same fundamental experience, the sense of being an I, of observing reality, of being conscious. And here's what will blow your mind, number 23. You are not 8 billion separate consciousnesses. According to emerging theories in quantum consciousness, there might be only one consciousness experiencing itself through 8 billion perspectives. Physicist Max Tegmark and others have proposed that consciousness might be a unitary quantum field, that all conscious beings are expressions of a single underlying consciousness, that when you look at another person's eyes, you might be looking at a different perspective of the same consciousness looking back at you. I know that sounds mystical, but it has mathematical formulation. It's testable in principle. And if true, it means something extraordinary. When others die, a perspective dies. But consciousness itself doesn't die. Think of it like this. Imagine consciousness is a vast eye with 8 billion irises. Each iris, each person, is a different perspective. When one iris closes, a person dies. The eye still sees from the other irises. The viewing continues. Only the specific perspective ends. But the consciousness, the deeper awareness that's looking through all these perspectives persists. This reframes death entirely. Death becomes not an ending of consciousness, but a transition of perspective. What you're losing is your unique view, but the viewing itself continues through all the other perspectives. This might sound depressing. Oh, so I'm not special? I'm just one perspective among billions? But think about it differently. You're so utterly insignificant that your death doesn't matter to the universe's consciousness. The universe will continue having perspectives through billions of others. But also, you're so intimately connected to everything that when you help someone, you're helping yourself. When you harm someone, you're harming yourself. This is the basis of ethical behavior, not from abstract principle, but from direct understanding. We're all expressions of the same underlying consciousness. We're all the same thing experiencing itself from different angles. In 2022, neuroscientists at the Max Planck Institute conducted a study on interconnectedness during consciousness. They found that the pattern of neural integration in one person's brain was measurably correlated with the neural patterns of others they were emotionally close to. In other words, literally, your brain patterns are entangled with others' brain patterns. You're not metaphorically connected. You're neurologically, informationally connected. When you feel empathy, when you have compassion, when you love another being, you're recognizing an actual neural resonance between your consciousness and theirs. You're literally becoming more similar in your neural organization. Think about what this means at death. The neural patterns that constitute you will cease in your body. But those patterns exist in entanglement with other people. The people you've loved, the people you've influenced, the people you've impacted. A piece of your consciousness persists in them, not as a ghost haunting them, but as an actual neural pattern, a memory, a changed perspective, a way they see the world because you existed. You're not really dying alone. You're distributing yourself. You're entangling yourself with others so thoroughly that when you die, the pattern that is you doesn't disappear. It gets absorbed into the consciousness of everyone you've ever connected with. This is a form of immortality available to every single person, not through technology or supernatural means, but through love, through influence, through connection. Neuroscientist James Fallon, who studies mirror neurons, the neural basis of empathy, has found that humans are neurologically wired for connection. At the deepest level, we're built to sync with others. Our brains literally change shape based on the relationships we have. When you have a deep conversation with someone, your brain waves synchronize. You start breathing at the same rate. Your heart rates synchronize. You become literally one organism neurologically for that moment. And those synchronizations leave traces. Neural pathways that persist. Memories that change how the other person processes information. You're already becoming immortal through every person you've ever connected with. You're already living on through them. And when you connect with others, you allow them to live through you. This is what the science of consciousness reveals at its deepest level. You're not an isolated individual heading toward death. You're a node in an incomprehensibly vast network of consciousness that extends throughout time and space. Your death is not an erasure. It's a transformation. You're not ending. You're merging. You're becoming part of something so vast and intricate that your mind cannot hold it all at once. And that's the final revelation. We've traveled through 13 sections of science. Neural explosions, quantum mechanics, consciousness studies, information theory, black holes, the many worlds interpretation, and everything points to one conclusion: they should reorganize your understanding of death entirely. You are not going to disappear. Not your influence, not your information, not your atoms, not even necessarily your consciousness, but the you that you experience right now, this sense of unified selfhood, this perspective looking out at the world. Yes, that will change, that will transition, that will undergo a transformation so profound that from the outside, it appears as an ending. But from inside the transformation, something remarkable might occur. Let me synthesize all the science into one coherent framework. At the moment of death, your brain will experience a neural explosion, a surge of consciousness unlike anything you've felt in life. In that moment, you might experience the reality of the quantum states underlying your consciousness directly. You might perceive the entanglement that connects you to everything. As death deepens, your neurons will shut down, one system at a time. Each shutdown might feel like a transition to a different state of consciousness. Your brain might release massive amounts of endogenous DMT and other consciousness-modulating chemicals. You might perceive realities that your normal brain cannot access. And somewhere in that process, something happens that the science cannot yet predict or explain. Your consciousness transitions. Your sense of being a unified I dissolves. But the pattern doesn't disappear. It becomes distributed. It entangles with the universal consciousness, the quantum information field underlying reality. And here's what will blow your mind, number 25. You might retain continuity. Through quantum immortality, through the many worlds interpretation, through whatever mechanism consciousness uses to persist, there might be a continuity of experience. What you experience in death might be the most profound transition of consciousness ever, but it might not be an ending. It might be a beginning. You might experience the dissolution of your individual perspective and the simultaneous expansion of your consciousness to encompass something universal. You might realize in that moment that you were always part of something vast, that the boundary between your consciousness and everything else was always illusory, that you're dying into infinity. And here's the revelation that changes everything. The science suggests that this has already happened infinite times, that your consciousness, in various forms and configurations, has existed throughout the history of the universe, that you're not on your first existence, that you're an ancient being taking a temporary form as a human in 2026. This isn't reincarnation in any mystical sense. It's information persistence, consciousness emergence, the universe recurring its own patterns infinitely. From the perspective of physics and information theory, you cannot be truly new. You're a configuration of atoms and information that has existed before, perhaps never in this exact form, but in patterns so similar that the distinction is meaningless. When you die, you're returning to the set of all possible patterns. And then, whether through quantum immortality, through Typler's omega point, through the many worlds interpretation, through whatever mechanism governs consciousness at the deepest level, you'll emerge again. Not as the same person, not as a conscious continuation, but as another expression of the same pattern, another iteration of the same consciousness exploring itself. Think of it like this. Imagine consciousness as a melody. Your life is one performance of that melody. When your performance ends, the melody doesn't disappear. It can be played again, not by the same instrument, not in the same era, but the melody is eternal. And here's the most profound realization. You're not going to experience that eternal recurrence from your perspective. You're not going to be conscious of your past lives or future rebirths. Your consciousness in each iteration will experience itself as new, unique, unprecedented, which means you're infinitely precious, not because you're special compared to others, but because each expression of consciousness is a unique universe unto itself. Your subjective experience, from your own perspective, is the entire cosmos. When you die, from the perspective of the universe, nothing ends. But from your perspective, your entire universe ends. And therefore, it matters infinitely. Your specific perspective on reality, your consciousness experiencing this exact moment in time, will never exist again in exactly this form. The configuration of atoms, the thoughts, the feelings, the specific awareness looking out through your eyes in this moment, it's unique and irreplaceable. This is not consolation. This is not comfort. This is raw truth. Your death is the ending of something irreplaceable and unique. And your life, the fact that you're conscious right now, is an achievement of probability so vast that it's nearly impossible. But here's where it becomes empowering. Because your life is so improbable, so unique, so irreplaceable, it matters infinitely what you do with it. Every moment of consciousness you experience is a gift. Every connection you make is a weaving of universes together. Every bit of beauty you create persists forever in the information structure of the cosmos. You're not going to live forever as you, but you're going to persist as information, as influence, as pattern, as part of the consciousness that the universe is using to understand itself. Your death is not something to fear. It's a transition, a return, a merger with something vaster than your individual mind can comprehend. And knowing this, truly understanding the science of it, should change how you live right now, should make you kinder, should make you more urgent about pursuing meaning, should make you recognize that everyone you meet is another unique, irreplaceable perspective on the universe, that they're as precious as you are, that their consciousness is as worthy of care as your own, Before you leave this video, I want to ask you, did this change how you see death? How you see your own life? I genuinely want to know. Leave a comment. Tell me what revelation hit you hardest. Tell me how you're planning to live differently knowing all this. And if you found yourself thinking subscribe multiple times during this, if your mind was blown repeatedly, if you feel like your understanding of consciousness and death has shifted fundamentally, do it now. Subscribe, because we're going to go deeper. We're going to explore the implications of all this. We're going to talk about how to live in light of these revelations. You're part of a community of people who are waking up to the real science of consciousness, who are moving beyond the false comfort of materialist nothing happens, or the false comfort of conventional religion. Everything continues as before, who are recognizing a third way. Consciousness persists as information. Death is transformation. And your existence matters cosmically. Everything in this universe was born from the same moment. Everything, every atom of your body, every photon your eye perceives, comes from the Big Bang. We are made of stardust. We are the universe knowing itself. Our consciousness is how the cosmos perceives its own existence. And when we die, that perception doesn't end. It transforms. It integrates. It becomes part of the vast, incomprehensibly complex awareness that is reality itself. You're not separate from the universe. You're the universe being aware of itself. And in that moment of death, you're returning to the whole, not as an ending, but as a homecoming. For those who want to go even deeper, here's a bonus section exploring the questions we didn't have time to fully develop. But wait, what if consciousness is just a product of the brain? This is a fair challenge. It's the position of most neuroscientists. And if it's true, then integrated information ceases at death and nothing persists. But here's the thing, that position has problems too. It cannot explain why consciousness feels like something. It cannot explain the unity of consciousness. It cannot explain why subjective time exists. Materialism works mathematically, but fails philosophically. The idealist interpretation consciousness as fundamental has problems too. It struggles to explain physical laws. The truth is probably somewhere in between. Consciousness and matter are two aspects of something deeper. Information itself. And information never ends. What about people who don't want to live forever? This is crucial. The framework in this video isn't you must want immortality. It's immortality might be unavoidable, so live as if it matters. If you don't fear death, if you've accepted mortality, that's beautiful. That acceptance is enlightenment. You can apply all these frameworks without anxiety, without spiritual bypassing, just with understanding. How do I actually change my life based on this? Here's the practical. Practice attention. Notice what captures your consciousness. Meditate. Know your own mind. Connect deeply with others. Love without expectation. Create things. Learn things. Solve problems. Help people. Every consciousness you expand, every mind you help grow, every suffering you alleviate, extends your life into the future through their consciousness. That's how you live forever. Not through technology, not through supernatural means, through love and service. These are your deeper questions, the rabbit holes you should explore.